Welcome to Real Money, Real Life, the podcast where we get real about money and the messy human stuff that comes with it. I'm Linda Grizely, financial educator and your Me Money guide to financial clarity. Each week, we dive into financial concepts and money strategies, but we always tie it back to real life, emotions, mindset, and how money actually shows up day to day. If you're ready for practical tools, mindset shifts, and honest conversations that meet you where you are, not where the world thinks you should be, you're in the right place. Because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you use it. No judgment, no lectures, and definitely no putting yourself last.
Hello, everyone. If you are listening, you're one of the real ones, the ones learning how to rebuild life, identity, and confidence after loss. Today, we're talking about money after loss, specifically how widows can reclaim confidence, clarity, and control in their financial lives. This is a season of grief, overwhelm, and pressure, and often these collide all together. And traditional financial advice rarely meets people where they are emotionally. My guest brings deep compassion to this conversation, helping widows navigate financial decisions at their own pace while rebuilding trust in themselves and their future. Paula Harris is a TEDx speaker and author of 2 books available on Amazon, Rise Up, A Widow's Journal, and Rise Up, A Grief Journal. She is a co-founder of WH Cornerstone Investments, where she is part financial planner, part dream architect, and a fierce widow advocate. She is creator of Rise Up Retreats, passionate about building communities of support and empowering widows with their financial future. Welcome, Paula.
Oh, Linda, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks. And I'm so happy to have you here. Talking about this is such an important thing. It's something that I actually used to focus on in my work too, so I'm familiar with it. But I always like to bring on people that have different perspectives and can talk about how they're helping people. And I would love to hear what led you to this work.
Sure. And it's so great to be able to talk to someone who understands this journey, since you've supported people as well. So I think it'll make for a rich conversation. Two things that sort of brought me here. One was growing up, my grandmother, Mary, my mother's mother, was widowed at the age of 50. So I was like 1, 2 years old. And I never saw her with a husband her whole life, my version of her whole life. But she was this strong, independent woman who really gave back in her community and just managed her finances on her own. So she was sort of a role model early on in life. And then when we got into this business, we had a client early on, and she was such a rewarding woman to help. She was the mother of 8 children, 7 still alive. Her husband had passed away, and she needed help. She implemented the help. She was so grateful for the help. And it was one of the most rewarding relationships we have. We still work with her children today, almost 30 years later. And it was just a joy to see how providing her with this advice could really make a meaningful difference in her life.
That's such a great story. I know that financial decisions feel especially heavy for widows, and it's just a completely different life, right? So help the audience understand what most widows or even widowers need differently than traditional like couples financial advice.
I think, just put yourself in their shoes for a moment. So she's lost her husband, her best friend, her social partner, her travel companion, her TV popcorn watching person. She's lost her financial support. She's lost potentially the parent of the children. She's lost her everything. So her world has just cracked open, and she's raw as can be. And it's like, where do I start? So meeting her at that point and saying like, okay, I recognize it. Like, you've lost your everyone who helped you do everything. And, can you help articulate for me what's most top of mind right now? And sort of meeting her where she's at. And, you also come with knowledge, like, a funeral is going to have to be paid for. You've got to find certain documents. You've got to get to the death certificate. Like, because of some knowledge you already have, you're going to have to guide her gently along this path. And funeral homes are there and they help guide a lot in those early days, especially as well. And then helping her help the family guide her. So it's coming on not too strong, meeting her where she is, and then gently nudging her to make decisions as need be. Sometimes slowing her down from not being like a racehorse out of the gate. Like, I've got to solve all these things. I've got to do all this. We started to work with a woman one time. Husband died over Labor Day. We came in October. She had already sold his car. She was panicked about money. She was trying to sell anything. She's like, I'm going to sell the Lennox China. So it's like, okay, how do you kind of settle the person down?
Yeah, I think that's where a person's personality and their risk tolerance, their anxiety level, just the whole way they interact with money comes into play a lot because there's so much emotion with money to begin with.
Yep.
And then to have this grief and all this other worry hanging over your head and just being thrust into a new chapter with, a lot of times without any warning, it is just so scary. So I get that. I totally get why someone would be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have that conversation to say like, "Hey, reach out to someone because you're not the first person to go through this and there are people out there that specialize in helping you figure this out." I think that one of the things that I found is that it's just so overwhelming. And the first step when I would work with, besides getting all the tactical things done in the life, right?
Yep.
But as far as like financial planning, just figuring out where things are can sometimes be a huge task because a lot of times the person that's left doesn't know where everything is.
Oh, absolutely. This is a little off of a widow subject, but talking to a young girl today, she's 25. She and her sister lost their mom a few months ago, and mom was a single parent. She was a fierce single parent, but she's like, everything has been hard. Like, I don't know about the insurance policy. Turns out the insurance on the house had lapsed and nobody knew it. We got a refund check and it was made out to my mom's name. And now, how do I cash it? Because it's now the estate of, and all of these things. And she's not the executor, her aunt is. And so every time she needs to get on the phone, she needs to get the aunt on the phone as well. So in the case of a widow, sometimes she just can't think clearly. So she needs someone else on the phone, whether it's a family member, a friend. You need that person, like another set of ears and eyes, because you're in that grief fog. You don't know what's happening. And I always recommend get a notebook and keep that notebook with you, and you just write everything down so that when your brain, freezes up, you have it written, then you're like, oh, that's what was said.
Yeah, I love that bringing up the notebook. I have a friend who had told me about that, and I had my clients do that. And the notebook was to write the things down that they needed to do also, so that they could just take one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it all, it's so overwhelming. And so when you get them all written down and then you just pick at them like one by one, like, oh, today, okay, I'm going to make this one phone call today. And if I've done that, I've accomplished something,
Yep.
because sometimes it can be hard just to get through the day. Um, Another thing that I always saw was, you know, sometimes they're hesitant to come and talk to a financial planner or an advisor because they think, I don't even know what tomorrow's like, much less the rest of my future now. How
Yeah.
can I plan for the future? And they don't realize that when you work with a financial advisor or planner, they're not necessarily just helping you plan for the future. So
Yeah.
talk more about the things that you can do for planning for the now and just getting through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things as planners we are sounding boards, and we help people understand and see their blind spots when they can't see them. So unfortunately, I think our industry's gotten a bad rap because, we got called into one of these situations, newly widowed woman, and the insurance agent wants to hand deliver the check to her, which was basically, I want to sell you an annuity so that your money doesn't leave. So there's fear of going to see somebody because they're going to be taken or sold. And so that unfortunately still happens. So I can understand that fear. But a true fiduciary advisor, planner is going to help you, listen to you, work through that. It's not time bound per se because there's no product being sold. It is just discovering what you need and how to make that next best decision. So as much as you like can try to look out a little bit, you want to keep people sort of, let's look in the 30 days, the 60 days, the 90 days, and what decisions have to get made now. We were helping somebody one time file for the life insurance. She was dragging her feet. And finally, she shared that if she actually filed it and then she got the check, it meant he was really dead. So it's like recognizing that it was an emotional trigger. It wasn't that, she was capable of doing it. She knew she needed to do it, but I missed that emotional piece. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. So being patient is, I think, important. So it's coming with that list of questions and saying, like, I know these may be stupid. And I remember back having some great teachers that said there's no stupid questions. The only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask. And so giving yourself permission to say, look, I'm at ground zero right now. Like, don't treat me like a child, but help me understand.
Yeah, I have a story about a friend whose husband passed away. And she came to me and she said, I don't know what to do about the finances, and I don't know what necessarily where everything is. She's like, I don't know where to start. And I said, well, because I knew her husband too. I said, well, he had a guy, right? And she's like, yeah, he had a guy. And I said, well, go to his guy. Hopefully his guy did holistic planning and knows everything, has all the accounts somewhere, And so she went to him and she came back to me and she said, I went to his guy and he was helpful. He knew where things were and he wants me to buy an annuity.
Ugh.
And I said, oh my gosh. And I said, look, I don't know anything about your financial situation, right? I don't know if an annuity is right for you or not right for you. But what I do know is that that's not a decision you should be making right now.
Exactly.
You don't even know where you stand financially yet. You don't even know what your future looks like yet. You know nothing right now.
Right.
And that is not a decision that you should not be making a lifetime decision at this point in time. So I get it. Like, and here I was as a financial advisor telling her to go to the guy he's already working with because he knows where everything is. And yet he still, I felt like and maybe he truly felt like that was the best thing for her, but he wasn't getting the idea that you don't make that sort of decision right now.
Right. Yeah. Then we had another client who they had bought full life policies. And we said to her, now that your husband's deceased, there's really not, and the kids are all adults, there's not really a need for whole life for you. Oh my gosh, did he go crazy? He started calling other family members, the children, saying, I think your mother's not thinking straight. He put so much pressure and she didn't know what to do. She was back and forth. And we don't want to be too heavy-handed because you can be sort of the reverse of that situation. Well, in the end, she decided she was not going to keep the whole life. And when she talked to friends who used the same guy, they said, oh my gosh, the pressure he has put on us for other life events has been exactly the same. And they realized, like, nobody wanted to talk about it. But sometimes you have to talk about these things in your circles because they may not be these advisors may not be acting properly, and you're not alone in having that feeling.
Yeah, knowing that you're working with someone who isn't out to just sell you something is a big deal. And for the listeners, if you haven't listened, go back to one of my very first episodes. I did a solo episode on how financial advisors get paid. So listen to that one so you can understand that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we need life insurance.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense for people to have annuities. It just kind of depends on who you are and what your situation is. And everyone is unique.
Yep.
So you just want to be sure that you're working with someone who's truly looking out for your best interest in that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get off that little soapbox and let's go back to some of the first financial decisions that widows are forced to make often before they're ready. And like you said, cashing in the life insurance policy is one of those.
Yep.
But what are some other ones that you can think of?
It's like, okay, updating your own estate plan and making sure that you've got your healthcare proxy and power of attorney named in case something happens to you during this time frame. Looking at making sure the bank accounts are properly titled, that you were on all of them. Hopefully this has already happened ahead of time, but we have seen, we've worked with a woman now almost 8 years. She's a widow. And the other day we were like, okay, so any other accounts that I captured here? She goes, oh yeah, there is one. I call it my scoot account or something. It's my secret account that like it was like, we've worked together like 8 years and you've never mentioned this. Like, so it's like helping people like uncover like those those accounts they didn't know about. Um, I think it's okay. Let's make sure that the insurance company has been notified, making sure that the license has been canceled, their driver's license, because you don't want someone else to sort of steal any of these things in the meantime, which is kind of a scary thing, but that could happen. Looking at canceling the insurance for the car. You can make a decision if you own a car, but what you want to do about that later. But, what are the bills that don't need to keep reoccurring? One of the really emotional is like the cell phone. A lot of people will keep a cell phone on for a year for two reasons. One, they want to hear the person's voice, but two, it's a way that other people can get in touch with them. So, get in touch with the deceased to let them know, that they're no longer here. You've probably at this point already notified employer, any of the other like insurances, like the life insurance we talked about. The lots of just sort of these checklist items, and things like you want to think about. Did you have an alarm in your home, and or you didn't, and now because you're living alone, you may want to have an alarm. Depending, like I live in the Northeast. You got to start thinking about things like, oh my gosh, it's now December. We have an in-ground sprinkler system. One widow told me one day in the end of December, she looked out and there was a water fountain spraying in a yard. She never even thought about the fact that the sprinkler had to be shut off and it had frozen and exploded. Ask somebody to come by your property and say, okay, what do I need to do to winterize a pool, the gutters cleaned, like things that you don't want to have an ice dam, show up. So it's like, okay, who can help solve some of those problems, and just say like, look, what do I have to do? I've never managed this myself. Or maybe you have, but you may just need help getting it done. So there's just a lot of, depending on the time of year, there's lots of different trigger points that could be happening.
Yeah. And, you mentioned getting things switched over into your name. Sometimes it's even the car titles, like you said, it's easier to get them switched over now while you're switching everything so that it's just your name if it was in both names than to just let it sit. I mean, there's nothing that's going to make you do that. But when it comes time to get rid of the car or sell the car or trade it in or whatever, it's going to be that I don't want that pain all over again,
Yeah.
having to face it. So you might as well face it while you're doing all of it so that you don't have to have that reminder later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing that you didn't mention was updating beneficiaries. You did
Oh,
mention
yes.
the estate documents, and I know you didn't. I know you wouldn't forget that. I'm sure that's
Nope.
top on your list. But beneficiaries are so important too, because now that person was probably your main beneficiary. So now you have to look back and see how things are going to play out too, in addition to
Yeah.
getting your own estate documents.
And that can be either simple, I have 3 children, it's a third, or it's, oh my gosh, I'm a solo. I'm now a solo. We had no children. My siblings, aren't around. Like there could be a lot of things that can come up with, like, okay, what do you do? Does it become charities at this point? And but yes,
Mhm.
getting those renamed is important because you don't want to end up in like a probate circle if something were to happen. I guess you're not here, but so your loved ones will not be happy with you if it's not
This is
updated.
true. All right. So let's talk about the things that are important to get done right away. What are the top 3 things you would say to get done right away? And they might be repeats of what we've already said, but I
Yep.
want to
So
make
if
sure we get the
if the
top 3.
person, your deceased, was employed, it's notifying the employer, notifying, I'd say, Social Security, and then making sure you have access to money and the bank account, and credit card. That's another one. Often people don't realize that a credit card is held in one person's name. And even though you're a married couple, you might get a card that has your name on it, but the account was really only in the one person. It might have been in the husband's. We had this with a client, and she didn't work. So she didn't have credit on her own. So when she went to get her own credit card, she could get a $300 a month credit card. So she could charge $300. So if she charged groceries and gas on the same day, she was tapped out. So making sure that, you have access to money is a really big deal. Again, hopefully you've updated and you are joint on accounts, but a lot of people are not joint. And they, a lot of people keep money separate. I see more and more households that are married, but like we both contribute a little bit in, but I don't necessarily have access to your bank account if you're not here. That's a big deal, especially if you have a larger life, multiple homes, multiple states. There's a lot of things have to get paid. That's a very big deal.
Yeah, and I want to note that I've seen it happen in real life where someone notifies their banking or their financial institution that their spouse has deceased or passed away, and the banking institution closes down all of the accounts and makes them open all new accounts. And then they have all of the automatic transfers and transactions that they need to go figure out what they are
Yeah.
and get them set up new. So that was a huge task for this particular person.
I saw a situation where the bank closed the accounts before the wife told the bank because the person who died was well known in the community and they had heard that he had died and they went voluntarily and closed all the accounts. So she didn't even get to notify them. She's suddenly thrust into all accounts are closed. So tough. Yeah. When you're not thinking straight, you've got a long list of things to do already. The last thing you want to do is have to track down all these payers and update your account information.
Yes. And I want to say that those accounts that were closed, at least in my experience, the accounts that get closed are even the joint accounts. The
Right.
joint accounts are closed down because they have to retitle and open new accounts just in your name. The joint accounts tells the bank that you have authority to take that money, but if the deceased person's name is on the account, that account can no longer be. So they're opening up a new one and they are allowing you to move the money because your name is on it. Now, if your name is not on it and it's only in your deceased spouse's name, then you're going to have to go through a bigger process to get that money moved.
Yeah.
Because it's not just going to happen automatically. But again, whatever automatic transactions are going through that account will need to be reestablished under a new account.
Yep. And that can be difficult. I'm supporting aging parents and just trying to maneuver all that. And, nowadays everything is electronic, which is so hard. So we used to say to people, just wait 90 days and pretty much you'll know about all accounts through the mail. But now very few things are getting mailed. They're emailed in. So you want to proactively know the password to email systems. And preferably, you're going to know passwords to where the online banking was done, where the pension account is, where the credit card is paid. But that's not always the case. So we're big advocates of something like a LastPass. So you've shared your passwords. But it is really hard sometimes to track down where accounts go.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And having one password to, like you said, LastPass, there's Keeper, there's a whole bunch of different ones. And the idea is that then you just have one password that you need to share, and that password gets people in to see all of your passwords.
Yeah.
And then in that case, you put that with your estate documents so that they have access to that.
Yep. Very
Yeah.
good point.
Okay. So, all right, we talked about the things that you should rush to and get done first, but what are the things that some people think that they should rush to that maybe they can put on the back burner?
So this will be interesting to see your point of view too. We've always told people to be very slow about making housing decisions. And I have heard some financial advisors who are widows saying, I don't agree with that. So we used to always tell people, wait a year before you make a decision about selling your house. I still think you don't want to be making an emotional decision. I mean, if you truly can't afford something, you do not want to stay in it. Like if you can't make the mortgage payments for the next month, you've got to really make a drastic decision. But if money's not really an issue, give yourself some time because the routine of coming back to the same place that's familiar is going to be helpful to get you through that grief period. What has your experience taught you on sort of like that like the housing, something big like that?
Well, you do have to think about whether you can afford it or not.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a situation where you absolutely can't. But here's what I want to say. From the widows that I've worked with, I would say more than half of them had not gone through their husband's closet and gone through his stuff for a couple of years after. Some
Yeah.
of them go through it right away and they're okay with that. Others, it takes them a long time. Their closet seems to be the most personal space, and it's really difficult for them. So if you're talking about selling your house and downsizing, you have to think about the emotional stress that you're going to put yourself under and the additional grief that you're going to go through while you make those piles of give to Goodwill, or give to
Yeah.
charity, I should say, and throw away, right?
Well,
How emotional is that going to be? And are you ready for that? And really, you're never ready for that. That's so, but
right.
you have to think about that. Like, what state of mind are you in? Because everybody grieves differently and there's no wrong way to grieve, right? It's all a very personal experience. So think that there's some people who think about money too much, and there's some people that don't think about money enough.
Yep.
And somewhere there's a happy middle where you're like, okay, I need to face the reality that I can't afford to stay here, but I also need to understand that this is going to be a very emotional process.
Yeah. That's a very good point. And yeah, it is very true. Very true.
Yeah. Have you experienced that with the closets? Is that something that, because I have had that more than once. So I've actually had it a few times. So I'm just curious if you have any other things
Yeah.
like that are.
I would say yes, and I would say also we had a client who had the greatest tie collection in pocket squares. Like I love to see him. I'd be like, "What are you wearing today?" And so for her, like everybody loved his stuff, that she like shared it one day. Like anybody who wants, pocket square tie, please come and take it. And so that was very freeing for her to be able to share it as opposed to holding on. I've seen people do things like, okay, I took all his favorite running t-shirts and I made it into a blanket. So when you can do something purposeful like that, another woman had 3 blankets made for the 3 kids, because he was a huge athlete. But you're right. It can be like everything on the dresser is still the same. Like, because I want to keep the smell. I want to keep everything about that last moment, especially if it was sudden and you didn't expect it. It can be really hard. And I think some of it comes back to personality too. I think there are just people who there will never be a piece of clutter in their house, and check, move on. I probably would keep things, but for a bit. But I know I probably would be like, oh, someone else should be using this. It's not fair. It's not being used.
Yeah. There's also those things that you think about when you think about your spouse and you're like, if you were gone, that'd be the first thing I'd get rid of.
Yes, that is very true. The orange striped shirt that my husband has that he wears all the time, I'm like, why do you even own that? I hate it. That would be gone. I wouldn't even feel guilty.
Too funny. Okay. We had to add some humor into this serious conversation.
Yeah. Well, sort of on that, one of our clients talked about, we always did, would come home from work and he always wanted to have a drink and would unwind, every night of the week. And she goes, I didn't like that. I didn't want to drink that much. And so after he was gone, as much as she missed him, she's like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to create new routines. And I don't want to do that. So that sometimes even in that sadness and grief, it's like, wow, I'm trying to figure out who I am, and I'm honoring what it is that I want. And I feel like I have permission to do that because I wasn't going to upset the apple cart. It wasn't that big of a deal. But if I want to eat breakfast in bed, I can do it. And nobody's going to say anything. So if I want to read all night and keep the light on, I can do that. So I think some people get to that point a little sooner and they're like, wow, I'm enjoying this new routine that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to move at your pace and
Yep.
knowing that it's okay to move slow and it's okay to move fast. It's whatever works for you. Because, like I said, everybody grieves differently. You just need to be sure that if you are moving slowly, that you're not ignoring things that are super
Yeah.
important. And if you're moving quickly, make sure that you're thinking and not going too fast.
Yeah, I was at a golf group with a woman whose husband died at the end of August, and she remarried on January 1st. And she said, well, he had gotten sick in April. And she says, well, I've been grieving him since April. Because to most of us, that was extremely fast. And, I don't know if she knew him beforehand, all this, but you do also want to be careful because often when someone's widowed, there can be a financial windfall in the sense that there could have been a large insurance policy. They could have access to a lot more money than they may have not had beforehand. So predators do come out of the closet. So we've seen two people that we've known fairly closely. One, oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk. I'm on the oil rig. But establishing this huge relationship with this woman ended up sending him over $350,000. She had him sign documents. She met his siblings, like all of this, and she was out all this money that she took from a retirement plan. And then another woman I know, even though the U.S. military left Afghanistan, he was still left behind in Afghanistan. And they couldn't meet yet because he was still there. And he just kept stringing her along. And there's no financial, she had nothing really to lose, but the emotional piece of it, like she was so desperate for that friend, for that person who was going to love her. And people do prey on people. So I get really nervous on the fast because it's like, what's going on? And then I also recognizing that some people just cannot be alone. And what does that mean? So sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it's like, we had a client who's had a family member hire a private detective because somebody showed up in their life during COVID and they were very suspect and was really encouraging her to make a lot of decisions that they weren't comfortable with. And in the end, he got the boot. He was not the person that the woman had hoped he would be.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that because I think that as financial advisors working with people who are widowed or that we also play an emotional support person in making sound financial decisions. So even just having someone to say, I need to run this by my financial advisor first. And giving an excuse to when somebody's asking you for something, just say, you know what, I need to run it by my financial advisor and say, my financial advisor says no. It gives you a scapegoat, kind of, so to speak. I haven't had that. I have had clients where they've been taken advantage of, but not necessarily in the sense that you're talking about. But it is a space where I would say use me as your scapegoat to say no, because no, you can't do this. You can't afford to do this. I don't recommend that you do this. But I've also had people who have hidden things from their financial advisor and then had to come clean. They maybe avoided their annual review for a year or two. And then finally, when they finally did connect, they were like, well, I've been embarrassed to come in because this happened to me.
And we actually, oh gosh, sorry, another widow we had been called in and the daughter was there, but she had been scammed out of $10,000, that cash that the gardener brought to the end of the driveway to give to the person. And it was like, oh my, hey, there's something more going on here. And we didn't end up not working together, which was just okay. Like she's in definitely cognitive decline. And like the family needs to be heavily involved at that point. But, you have to watch. We're great for being scapegoats. We're great for being sounding boards. We recently met the new boyfriend of a client who's been widowed for a bunch of years. And it was great to meet him. And it was like, we definitely, like, she knew it was a big deal to bring him to us. And it was like, we went to dinner and it was like, okay, understanding what's his financial situation like. He was a widower himself. So it was like, okay, they met innocently. Like, it was like, okay, we helped, like, yep, gave the thumbs up. Seems like a good guy. But the other thing we have to also watch out for is children, because I feel like children can be pretty manipulative of parents anyhow. And now you don't have the good cup, bad cup of mom and dad. And mom can be very, guilty. This could be kids, could be young, could be teenagers, 20-somethings, or even adult children who are like, I need help. You need to financially help me. And you start sacrificing for your child. And people have different, this is a wide range of philosophies. Like, I'd rather help my kids while I can, but like we had a client who bought a new car 2 years later. She's like, I need a new car because I gave that one to my daughter. It was like, okay, like being careful on how you spend. Like, yes, this is a lot of money, but we don't know how long you're going to live and how much it's going to cost to do all these things and what your care might be needed in the long run. So saving adults from their kids sometimes is a kind of a delicate thing we need to do.
Yeah, I think that it's important to understand that among all the grief that you're experiencing, that there's also this pressure from family, from other people, from a lot of things coming at you during that time too.
Yeah. And I think again, use, the advisor as that scapegoat of like, I need to run it by. We say no, not a good idea. I need more time. I need, people. Why don't you invest in this private placement? Just all these things will come out of the woodwork, and you have to really be careful and protect yourself.
Yeah. So how else can we help them quiet the outside noise and tune into what's really right for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of times I see even very bright women with advanced degrees going, I am so overwhelmed. I don't understand all this jargon. There's so many papers to be signed. There's so much to be done. Is like, okay, here, how can I help you? Like, how can I sit down and go through some of these with you? And I see a lot of women go to I would say, old stereotypes, like the man handled the money and the woman handled the household. And that's like, I don't do well with money. So I try to break it down to like money and investments are two different things. You may not necessarily understand the stock market, but do you understand that you need to bring in more than goes out? And I try to break it down to that simple, like that's how money is. You need to have more coming in than going out, or you're in trouble. And so most people get that, at a core understanding, and don't have to panic about like, I don't understand like what a stock does or, what an ETF is. So trying to keep it to the basics and helping them along that way. And then I think it's helping them celebrate the small wins along the way. Like, hey, you did this for the first time by yourself. It's awesome. Hey, you got your account set up to do online access and you made that, you transferred the money over. You did this, like helping them build their confidence along the way. And it's being that, I try to send little gifts, just like I'm thinking of you, like you've got this, you're stronger than you think. I love that quote. You're braver than you think, you're stronger than you think, you're smarter than you think. And I think as women, we often second guess ourselves, and sort of helping her build herself up, I think is a big deal.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's talk about mindset and internal obstacles. So, what fear or belief do you feel like most often keeps widows stuck, financially or otherwise?
Yeah, I think that have you heard the bag lady syndrome?
I have not.
Oh, I love sharing this one. So the biggest fear I think women have is that I'm going to be a bag lady living under the bridge with my shopping cart of shoes. Like I don't have enough. And I've put these articles out in our newsletter, and I will tell you some of the wealthiest people I know are the ones that open that article. And so it doesn't, depend on your socioeconomic status. Sometimes the more money you have, the more you think you're going to lose. And it's paralyzing. So it's like, so for some people, they can never go back to a simpler life. They've gotten very accustomed to spending whatever they want, whenever they want. And sometimes it's really more like retail therapy. It's not real need. It's just all want. We had a client who worked with somebody who was addicted to QVC, and he was using QVC as his retail therapy. Someone would come to the door, someone would talk to him on the phone, but his garage was full of boxes. Like you couldn't throw another box in. And so being careful not to help people like what's real, who's a real person that you can talk to rather than just, somebody on the 809. So it's helping them see, what's a real need versus a want, and why you might be doing something. Is it for attention, for love, for companionship? A widowed friend that I found she was going to get coffee every day, and she was starting to have some cognitive issues. And I walked out and said, let me put this in your car. And there were like 6 partly drunk coffee cups all over the front seat of her car. And I said, okay, she is coming here for socialization. And it's like, okay, I knew the family. And I was like, I think family, you need to get involved. So sometimes we have to help bring the community around as well when somebody may not be themselves anymore. We have a unique vision into that part
Yeah,
of life.
absolutely. Okay, if you were going to give the listeners one action step, the widows listening, one action step that they can do to move forward, what would that be?
It would be take some form of action. So is it that account statement that's in the mail that you haven't wanted to open? Is it that phone call that you need to make? Is it that cleaning out just the shoes, like of the closet? Just take one action. And I find James Clear has a great book, Atomic Habits, and there's something called habit stacking. So if you have a habit you already do, like brushing your teeth, well, washing your face after you brush your teeth is a very natural habit, and it's easier than to then comb your hair. So if you take one small action, sometimes it makes it much easier to then take that second action. And so it's like, okay, if you have to reward yourself, like, hey, I'm going to make a cup of tea after I do this. Like, I did it. Like, I'm a big one. Pat yourself on the back. But it's eat that frog, they say.
Yep.
Take that, do that unpleasant thing, and then it will be so much easier to do that next piece. And then how do you keep stacking those small little decisions that you find like, oh my gosh, I'm crawling, I'm walking, I'm jogging. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, tell us who needs to find you.
Oh, so ideally there's been a diagnosis and you're going to have to manage your finances on your own. So, as a couple, go find somebody like me that's going to be there when, you're no longer there. So that's ideal. I talked to a gentleman last week about that. He had just recently got a diagnosis, and his wife is an artist and doesn't deal with money at all. So it's people who want a thinking partner, is people who are willing to delegate and are willing to trust. And then obviously it's hard to come right when you've lost someone, because the decisions that have to get made are so rapid that when you're coming much further along, it's harder because so many decisions are now irreversible. And do call us before you make the IRA distribution decision. That's a big deal, because that's an irreversible one. That's definitely a big, big deal. And my husband actually wrote a book on how to inherit your spouse's IRA for that reason, because it's so important and it's irreversible.
Yeah. And it keeps getting more complicated as time goes on.
Yes,
Keep changing
unfortunately.
the rules and making new rules. Okay, how can they find you? What's the best place for people to find you?
Sure. Our website is whcornerstone.com. We have a social media presence on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I have my passion project. I do something called Wisdom Wednesday. So I have a YouTube channel, just at Paula Harris 1, and I put out a lot more mindset type things, how to get people to sort of take action in life, how they to think differently, how to have more positivity in your life. They're like 1 to 3 minute videos. And that's been a passion since the pandemic started, when I wanted to bring more hope into the world, when people were just so, unhopeful.
Okay, great. I also have a link here for a widow resource guide. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
On our website, we have lots of guides for different stages along the widowhood journey. This is sort of, you've already widowed, and these are podcasts you should listen to, books you should read, organizations you might want to look at, just a lot of different resources that way. And that's a great tool to sort of help yourself move forward.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Paula. It has been a pleasure. And I'm sure that we've provided somebody with some great pieces of information and takeaways today.
I sure hope so, Linda. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And if you're still listening, thanks for listening all the way through. You are one of the real ones, and that matters. And here's your closing nugget. You don't have to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need permission to move at your own pace.
Thanks so much for listening to Real Money, Real Life. Want to see what's blocking you from financial confidence or discover your money personality? Head to the resources page at lindagriz.com for our free quizzes. That's LINDAGRIZ.com/resources. If you're loving what you're learning, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'm your Me Money Guide to Financial Clarity, Linda Grizely, and I'll catch you next time as we talk more real money, real life, because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you spend it. The content shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial, tax, legal, or planning advice and does not constitute therapy or mental health counseling. Please consult an actively licensed and qualified professional for advice or help specific to your situation.